Step into the realm of the paranormal on Til The Last Drop, a show that blends paranormal stories and events with a themed drink.
Okay. Well, that may be a zombie, and this may be our zombie episode.
Yeah? I thought it was just you waking up.
No. Maybe from the dead, but...
Ah, gotcha.
So, in this episode, we have an idea of going over the origin of zombies. Mm-hmm. Maybe their first origin as compared to their voodoo roots, at least in some cases. Perhaps we'll go into the usage of zombies in media, because why not? That sounds like a very rich content area, especially considering that zombies are very well known in media now.
Yeah, they're all over.
Yeah. And that also includes not just movies, but maybe a video game or two as well.
Yeah, there's lots of those too.
Yeah. Considering that we've been doing a few of these episodes and we haven't covered zombies, I had a feeling that this might end up actually being a bit of a longer run on this one. So we may split this up into two parts. So our first part will probably go over a few things, and then we'll have a second part that may include a bit more.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot to zombies.
Yeah, there's a lot. So why don't we get this episode started?
Sounds good.
Dead will rise, so they can hear more content from Till the Last Drop.
All right, well, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, just as always.
Again.
Yep. So to start this off, we might as well hit with the origin of zombies. In this case, it's been noted that ancient Greeks may have been the first civilization that were terrorized by the fear of the undead.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently, archaeologists have unearthed many ancient graves which contain skeletons pinned down by rocks and other heavy objects, assumedly to prevent the dead bodies from reanimating.
So, in my brain, I'm like, were they actually dead?
I don't know. It's like you will be here and you will stay here, and they just put a bunch of rocks on them.
Right.
So, or maybe it was. Who knows?
But there was a lot of stuff that other civilizations did to prevent vampires from rising.
Yeah, which, I mean, they are somewhat classified as the undead, but not so much of the zombies.
The re-dead, the reanimated dead.
Yeah, which zombies are known differently once we start going throughout history. I mean, the zombie that everybody thinks of nowadays really only came to be in like the late 60s and early 70s.
The movie zombie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where it really came from. Before that, we had more inspiration from the voodoo-style zombies.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, isn't White Zombie the movie about like a voodoo type of zombie in Haiti?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's more than just that, and we'll go to that once once we get into it.
Once we get to that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because I know one of them was where is it here? Obviously, White Zombie is one of them, and we have everything with like, and this is the other part of it too. We're going back into the same actors that we saw in our last episode. So
the
Bela
horror
Lugosi,
greats.
Yep, Bela Lugosi was in, I believe, White Zombie. That one was
he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, starred Bela Lugosi.
Oh.
And I can't find any of the other actors at this point. It was Victor Halperin's White Zombie. I guess he did the directing of it or the producing of it. I imagine it was his direction of the 1932 film.
Gotcha.
But we'll get back to that after we go into the other side of things.
Right. When we talk about zombies in general.
Yeah. So in this case, going into a little bit of a history of that, and there's like zombies in the whole voodoo thing, which is based more off of zombie folklore that has been around for centuries in Haiti, possibly originating in the 17th century. And that was when West African slaves were brought in to work on Haiti's sugarcane plantations. The brutal conditions left the slaves longing for freedom. According to some reports, the life, or rather afterlife, of zombie represented the horrific plight of slavery.
I get that.
Yeah.
That's sad too.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, this is something that's been going on through human history, is like slavery in general, but it's just, there's always something else, and that makes sense.
Slavery is horrible. I'm just
yeah.
going to say that.
Yeah.
All right.
So, voodoo, sometimes spelled with a U at the end instead of another O. I guess it would be minus the second O after the V and replace the second O after the D with a U, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't realize it didn't have the second O.
Yeah. Or I guess what could be pronounced as Vodun, since there's no second O and no. Okay, enough of this. All right. It's a religion based in West Africa and practiced throughout Haiti and the Caribbean, Brazil, and American South, and other places within African heritage. Many people who follow the voodoo religion today believe zombies are myths, but some believe zombies are people revived by a voodoo practitioner known as a Bokor. I believe that's the pronunciation. It's a Bokor.
Yep.
So I can only imagine that it sounds like that.
Mm-hmm.
Bokor had traditions of using herbs, shells, fish, animal parts, bones, and other objects to create concoctions, including zombie powders, which contain tetrotoxins.
Isn't that from the pufferfish?
I think so.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, it's a neurotoxin found in pufferfish and some other marine species.
Yeah. So poison.
Yeah. So used in sublethal doses.
That's where they get you.
The toxin combination may cause zombie-like symptoms such as difficult walking, mental confusion, and respiratory problems.
So they're just mostly dead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's kind of like, I suppose you could say like maybe a twilight state or so, where you're not 100% sure of what you're doing. You're not fully conscious of it, but you're still like able to do things, I suppose.
They're really high.
Yeah. And that could be part of the other zombie like behavior that could have been seen as well, because there is the belief or the use of voodoo zombies as essentially a version of a slave, where you're put under a quote unquote mind control using this toxin, and it's kept the person unwilling to resist, I suppose.
Unable to
Yeah.
resist. Not unwilling.
Well, I mean, they would be willing to resist. I don't know the exact.
It would make them so that they were susceptible.
Yeah.
And they were pliable.
Yeah. So obviously, like, we went over like some of the sublethal doses, but high doses of the tetrotoxin, or it can lead to paralysis and coma. So it could come back to have somebody appear as they were dead and be buried alive, then later revived.
Which would make it look like, oh, look, I'm super, voodoo
Yeah.
man, and
Yeah.
I'm now bringing this person back to life.
Yeah. So that can also create like the myth around a voodoo practitioner, as if they are, I don't know, outside the bounds of
Life
life and death. Yeah. So let's see. There are a few, not a lot, but a few medical reports, or I suppose reports within medical journals that kind of cover some of these. There was a article in a 1997 British medical journal, the Lancet, I believe. It described 3 verified accounts of zombies. In one case, a Haitian woman who appeared to be dead was buried in a family tomb, only to reappear 3 years later.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it's almost as if she wanted to disappear, but I kind of doubt that.
That's a lot to do to just disappear.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like intense faking your death.
Yeah. An investigation revealed that her tomb was filled with stones, and her parents agreed to admit her to a local hospital. I don't have much more detail on that other than
How did the tomb get full of stones? Was that I'm confused on that one just
I don't-
because did they actually bury the stones?
I don't know. I don't
That's
have
interesting.
at the moment. I don't have any more detail on that one.
Right. That's interesting.
So there was another case, a Haitian man named Clervius.
Narcisse.
Yeah,
I've heard this story.
Yeah, this is one that's been covered a lot and all that too.
Yeah, I've seen a couple different tellings of this particular case.
He entered a local hospital with severe respiratory problems in 1962. After he slipped into a coma, he was declared dead and was buried shortly thereafter. 18 years later, a man walked up to Angelina. It might have been his sister.
Narcisse? I'm not sure. How to pronounce
Narcisse.
it.
Narcisse? I don't know. In a village marketplace, insisting she was his sister. Doctors, town people, and the family members all identified him as Clervius. So he claimed to have been buried alive, then dug up and put to work on a distant sugar plantation.
Yep.
So was it planned? Was he essentially being drugged at some point? And he was, considering this was 18 years later, he was probably like dug up within like a few days. Because obviously you're not going to be able to breathe. And I'm going to be generous when I say a few days.
Right.
wait
No,
till the
I would
coast is
assume
clear.
that they just wait till they're buried and immediately go get them.
Yeah.
Because you have a very finite window of opportunity to recover somebody who's been buried.
Yeah. So chances are he was probably almost 18 years of doing this, which obviously at that point, I mean, he could have easily just been disappeared. He could have been hidden, I should say.
Yeah.
So he would have disappeared.
I know that there was a lot more to that story. I can't remember all the finer details right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an interesting one.
So now that we think about it, the process of becoming a zombie based off of all of this, it seems to be a pretty brutal way of, I don't know, becoming undead.
I mean, I feel like that kind of goes without saying. To
Yeah.
become undead, you have to die.
Yeah.
So that's not usually pleasant.
Well, I mean, there is some description as like the process of zombification. I mean, it would begin with a Bokar selecting a victim and administering a zombie powder to them. It could either be from ingestion to injection or potentially even a blow dart. Something to get something to get that tetrotoxin into the bloodstream.
Right.
Or into the person. So once that powder takes effect, the victim enters a death-like paralysis in which they are still conscious. After being pronounced dead, they then bear witness to their own burial.
That's horrible.
Being
my God.
Being able to just sit and watch as everything happens, even though you can't do anything about it, can't move, can't speak.
That reminds me of the stories of people who were on the autopsy table and they were pronounced dead, but they weren't dead.
Oh, yeah.
And they like come to and they're gonna be cut open. Yeah. Nope, that's what that makes me think of.
Yeah. It's like, wait a minute.
Please don't.
Yeah. So let's see. So to prevent asphyxiation, the poker must dig up the body within 8 hours of the burial. Well, that
See?
answers my question.
Yeah, we have a very small window of time.
Yeah. At this point, the zombie ritual begins. The
Oh, it just then begins.
Well, yeah. The other could just be considered as drugging somebody. So it would be no different than
That's
like
the
one
death
of those
ritual.
one of those sleazy college bars.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
horrible.
That's what it is.
Okay. I wouldn't know. I didn't go to those.
I didn't either, but I've heard the tales.
Those are terrible tales.
Anyway, the Bokar starts by capturing the what is this? Tibonage, I guess. Tibonage.
T-bone ange.
It threw me for a loop. I was not expecting this. The Tibonage of the victim, which puts the Grosbanage and the body under his control.
Yes.
He then keeps the Tibonage in a small clay jar or some other container, wraps it in a piece of the person's clothes, and stores it for safekeeping.
That's what I do with mine.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm almost thinking that this does have like some French roots in it. I mean, that kind of looks like
Or
French
it's
structuring.
African. I'm not sure. I don't speak either of those languages. Sorry.
Anyway, a day or two later, the Bokar revives their now zombie using another powder mixture called zombie cucumber.
Sorry.
I don't
Sorry.
know why it's named this. I've never. I don't know why a powder would be a cucumber.
Oof.
But maybe it just has to do with how it's administered.
It's like mushrooms.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
Well, I suppose so. I mean, it does say the hallucinogenic concoction is used to periodically keep the victim in a state of submissive confusion.
So they're just drugging them.
So, yeah, that's what it sounds like to me.
Maybe zombie cucumber is a mushroom.
Yeah. The Bokar can then easily control a zombie and usually puts them to work farming and laboring. So,
Yep. So only when the Bokar dies or voluntarily relinquishes control can the zombie return to their place of burial and rest in peace.
yeah. Or, like potentially normal life.
I want to say that was part of the other guy's story. Nassis, or I can't remember how to pronounce his name. But one of the other stories where he came back 18 years later.
Yeah.
I want to say like they died or they relinquished control of him. And he went back and found his family.
Yeah. So there is a little bit of a detail here using, like, a zombie is created using zombie powder. It kind of goes over, like, a little bit of that in detail. So during the zombification ritual, a Bokar uses a complex powder referred to as a coup de prote, or powder strike, made from a variety of ingredients, usually including, as we said, like a species of pufferfish, a marine toad, Hyla tree frog, and human remains. That's for that extra zombie kick. It's usually from the foot. So the inclusion of the pufferfish is particularly important because it produces the neurotoxin. So it creates the paralysis and death if obviously used in too much quantity.
Quote unquote death.
Yeah. So the victims can remain conscious right up until the moment of death. Additionally, they have been documented cases where people have ingested this toxin, appeared to be dead, but went on to make a full recovery. So based off of like just the overall like data that we have on the toxin from this pufferfish, it kind of matches what this zombie style is.
Things like this always make me curious about who was the first person who was like, cool, spiky fish. I'm going to eat that. And then they ate it. And then people thought he died.
Yeah. Well,
and somebody else was like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same thing as like who ate the first egg, who decided to milk the first animal and consume that.
Yeah. I'm going to eat what comes out of that animal's butt. And I'm going to drink what comes out of that animal's teat.
Yep.
Humans are weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for instance, take wild mustard, for example. It spawned onto like multiple different plants after like selective breeding, like broccoli and all that kind of stuff too, just from wild mustard. So it's like there's 8 different vegetables that have come from this one thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Broccoli is wild mustard?
It used to be.
Oh, weird. I didn't know that.
Yeah. But obviously this is about zombies and not about
broccoli.
Botany. No. Yeah, broccoli. This is the broccoli show now.
Yeah. Well, there's Night of the Living Carrot or something. I don't know.
What?
It was it was a shorts made from like the characters from, I can't remember. It was a movie about like monsters.
With
yeah, like the cockroach genius guy.
Yeah, now I know what you're talking about. That DreamWorks one.
Yeah, and the Blob.
Yeah.
Monsters versus Aliens. That's what the original one is. Yeah,
okay.
I think that's what it is. But yeah, they had like a bunch of little shorts, and one of them was like zombie carrots. And Jack made me watch it like a million times. So.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of remember that.
Yeah. Zombies in media.
Yep.
They're even in our kids' shows.
Yep. Well, where should we go from here?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I mean, we could go over the horrors of slavery. As they're manifested in the zombie.
I mean, we can. That's intense.
Yeah.
I think it's important, though.
Yeah. Obviously, because there is so much that can be involved into this, we might as well condense it a little bit. Otherwise, we'll probably be here for like 5 episodes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. But I mean, basically, we could go on to say like the roots of zombie mythology began with the experiences of African slaves being transported to the French colony of Saint Dominique in modern Haiti. Life on sugar plantations obviously wasn't good. And half the slaves ended up being worked to death within a few years of their arrival.
That's
Yeah.
horrific.
So-
That's worse than not good.
Yeah. So, in lack of a better phrasing, it created a perpetual need for fresh bodies.
So yeah, why not just reanimate the dead ones?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why within the voodoo religion, a version of hell would be created that involved continuing this toll after death into eternity, basically as this is a zombie.
That's
Yeah.
horrifying. Honestly, really, that is.
Yeah.
Like, that is what I think would be a true version of hell for them.
So the slaves brought with them the roots of the voodoo tradition. The origins of it can be traced back probably about 6,000 years into West Africa. The French then forced them to convert to Christianity.
Because of course they did.
What else is new? Causing the interesting combination of Catholicism and pagan tradition that is associated with voodoo today.
So I think a lot of Catholicism stuff actually comes from pagan tradition, but I won't talk about that.
Let's not say that there could be some plagiarism at work.
Yeah, I don't want to spark up weird
Yeah.
anger debates.
So,
So anyways,
yeah.
so yeah, the horrors of slavery and the anxieties of being held by a group of people under constant threat of death were woven into the voodoo tradition or voodoo religion, including the zombie belief itself.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So here's something interesting. Considering that I butchered that other bit of information, basically when I said that the guy separated the Bokar, he separated the two things and he wrapped up that other thing. So basically, let's go back to a little bit of info on voodoo. In voodoo, it's believed that a person's soul is divided into 2 basic parts.
Okay.
And these were the parts. The Tibonange, which is, I guess, is a translation for good little angel.
Little good angel?
Yes.
Yes.
And the Gros Bonange is big good angel.
Yes.
The Gros Bonange is responsible for a person's life force and their bodily functions, while the Tibonange is responsible for a person's consciousness and identity.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
now it makes more sense.
he takes out the consciousness and the identity and leaves a shell that's capable of functioning.
Yeah.
But there's no self-entity to it,
Right.
which makes sense. That's
Yeah.
a zombie.
So there's also some data. There's some info that says that it's believed that the Tibonange remains within the body for 9 days after death, at which point it is released to the face of God and accounts for its sins. Meanwhile, the Gros Bonange remains on earth where it haunts the places where the body lived until a proper burial ritual has been performed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's lots of stories as to like, there's a ghost haunting something and then they find the person's improperly
Oh, yeah.
disposed of remains.
Yeah.
And once they remove that and bury them properly, the spirit can rest. So that kind of carries on to a lot of different.
There's a lot of movies and media that go into that too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
What was it? Poltergeist? Wasn't that one of them?
I think so. And they actually used real remains,
Yeah.
which caused issues on the set.
And Monster House. That was
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
The guy's wife was buried in the foundation of the house, and she became the house.
That's a crazy, weird movie. Like, it's good, but like,
The animation is just hard to look at.
It's rough, but it's still a good movie. But
Interesting
yeah.
idea. Some of the writing is a little meh, but that just comes with like the genre that it goes to. It's like kids horror in some sense.
Right. Well, there's also a lot of, things on like even shows like Supernatural where they have to take the remains and salt them and burn them, I believe,
Yeah.
in order to stop the spirit. So there's a lot of things that kind of have a very similar feel to this.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. So I guess before going any further, I will want to put this one out there. Even within like voodoo communities, zombies are rare. It's not exactly something that's, it's an everyday occurrence. It's not like something like that. So just
Not
because
my zombie next door.
Yeah. So just because somebody may be voodoo practitioner, it doesn't mean that they're going to either believe that zombies are actually something that is
Or
happening.
they're also maybe not out there making them.
Right. So it's basically a lot of practitioners don't even believe that zombies are literally real. So it just comes down to thinking that they're either folk tales or metaphors. However, others still believe that zombies do exist, and they actively fear being turned into one. This is the way that the zombie mythology is used to maintain the social order within voodoo religious communities. So yeah, I guess supposedly you wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of a bokar.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So I found a little bit more on Clarius Narcisse. Yeah, it was saying that in 1962 he checked into the Albert Schweitzer Hospital and he was complaining of body aches and a fever. Sorry, and his condition rapidly deteriorated within a few days and then he was declared dead.
Oh.
According to Narcisse, who appeared in 1980, he said he remembered all of it, including the doctors pulling the sheet over his head, except he was not dead. He was just paralyzed, so he couldn't call out. He couldn't do anything to stop it. He even said he was awake as he was nailed into his coffin and buried.
Oh, that's nice.
Again, horrifying. That is my word for this episode. Narcisse was able to answer questions that only he would know, and his identity was confirmed by several of his family members. He said that the reason for his prolonged absence was due to a 2-year enslavement as a zombie by a Bakor.
Oh. Okay.
And that the Bakor died, which would have released him, but he remained in hiding as he believed that his brother was the one who had sold him to the Bakor over a land dispute. And it was only after his brother's death that he decided to return.
Oh.
So that's why he was gone for 18 years.
I mean, sure. That's a bit.
Yeah, but I knew there was more to it. I just need to find it. Because like I said, I've actually heard his story, and I believe I've seen interviews with him before.
No.
So that was always an interesting one.
Yeah. Let's see. Do we have any other good history on zombies? I don't really know. I think we might be able to move over to the other section of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, by now I'm assuming that people know what a zombie is, or at least where a zombie started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here is one interesting bit of information. It is alleged that if you feed a zombie salt,
Oh, yeah.
it will restore them to their original sensibilities.
Yeah.
And they will then be compelled to promptly kill the Bakor who enslaved them. Wonder why.
No reason there. I guess.
And then once their revenge is complete, they will return to their place of burial to enjoy their final death.
Yeah.
After they OD on salt.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to probably take a short little intermission here, and then we'll possibly work into how zombies kind of moved into the pop culture scene. So.
The night is dark. The spirits are restless. They demand to be poured until the last drop.
All right, so after that little bit of an intermission we had there, I guess it'd be a good time to go into how the idea of a zombie or whatnot, or ghoul, if you will, has moved its way into pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
So, in 1968, George Romero basically changed the way that zombie movies were seen. Mm-hmm. And not just because he called them ghouls instead of zombies, but also because prior to that, most of it did focus on the voodoo style of zombies.
Right.
With, it was White Zombie in 1932. But even before that, there was the roots of zombie tradition in American drama came from Henry Francois, or Francis, I guess it's Francois, Downing's Voodoo from 1914. I believe it was a play. It was set in the Caribbean, and it featured voodoo magic as part of the plot. Granted, yes, that was still covering our voodoo-style zombies, but it's also more of what we've seen as the beginning of zombies in pop culture.
The zombies as we know now, or?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Or just their beginning of their existence in pop culture.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, at least more predominantly. Because here or there might have been some reference to it, but that's where it seemed to really make a turning point as putting that in there. And then, of course, like I said, it went into White Zombie with Bela Lugosi and doing that whole thing. And then they had more. There was 1936 Revolt of the Zombie. There was 1934. There was another voodoo-themed story called Chloe. Let's see what else is here. There was the voodoo tale called The Devil's Daughter in 1938. And those also helped establish that template of, I guess, the voodoo style, where it's highlighting exotic locales and predominantly featuring black cast members and utilizing threatening voodoo curses.
Mm-hmm. But no brain eating.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So it's not the zombie we know yet.
Gotcha.
So, of course, there was also 3 films during World War II that ended up bringing zombies more into mainstream. There were 2 comedies, Ghost Breakers and Zombies on Broadway.
Oh.
So they included zombified characters. Of course, it's the former. It was apparently a Bob Hope vehicle film or something. It was a vehicle for Bob Hope. Let's just say that. It featured famed African-American actor Nobel Johnson as a threatening presence on Paulette Goddard's inherited Caribbean estate.
Huh.
But it did not dwell on the possible voodoo origins of the character.
Interesting.
So, and he was best known for the native chieftain on Skull Island of the original version of King Kong.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of his history there. That's why I said he was like a famed actor.
Mm. Well, the original King Kong was pretty well known, so.
Yeah. There was also the latter, Zombies on Broadway.
Which is an epic name.
Yeah. It depicted a pair of publicity men heading to the Caribbean to find a real zombie as part of their advertising campaign for a new nightclub.
Wow. What?
So they employed Bela Lugosi as yet another zombie-making villain, because in the first one, I should say the first zombie villain role that he played was in White Zombie.
Yeah.
He's a voodoo practitioner, I believe. The film has one of the bumbling, decidedly not undead comic duo injected with zombie serum as part of Lugosi's experiments.
Oh.
Yes. So it did provide that authentic zombie that they needed, but the serum wears off by the time they return home.
Aww.
So, yeah. So unfortunately, they were not able to get their zombie.
Oh, that's a shame.
So, yeah. There was also, I suppose, a couple other important zombie films made by Jacques Tourneur, I think it was, and produced by Val Lewton. The duo also, they also created Cat People and The Leopard Man. So this one was I Walked with a Zombie. Mm-hmm. So it was probably the most accomplished and stylish of the pre-Romero zombie films. But there was no gore. Mm-hmm. And it was more supernatural and it was more on like Caribbean natives. So basically the same thing of what's been going on. So
Interesting.
yeah. Of course, there was a couple other ones: Valley of the Zombies in 1946, Zombies of Moratao in 1957. Of course, then again, they all paid that respect to White Zombie. So it was all around the same idea, the same,
General voodoo
yeah.
kind of zombie.
Yeah. And then George Romero decided to step in and do something different.
Yeah.
So within Night of the Living Dead, George Romero decided to call what would have been known as zombies today's zombies into ghouls. So they didn't fit any of the categories in which was previously defined by the word zombie.
Yeah.
They were fully reanimated dead corpses. And there's the whole thing with them, eating flesh of the living.
Right. That's like their whole thing.
Yeah. By eventually embracing this term, he was able to completely redefine the notion of the zombie. So, in some sense, it did kind of direct zombies away from that Caribbean culture and the slavery and all that.
Right.
As far as it too.
It's a different
Yeah.
breed of zombie in a way.
Yeah. Well, it took the term zombie and it made it more universal. It wasn't so much of something that was just related to this religion, to this culture. It made it where, because if you think about it, death is inevitable for everyone. It's not like it's just one portion. It's basically now the zombie can be applied for everyone as well.
Right.
So
it doesn't have the cultural specificity.
Yeah.
As the original voodoo zombie.
Yeah. And of course, with the way that the shambling undead, like with one goal in mind and all that, it has been referenced in, as I suppose I should say, as a parody of consumerism and over the top, like, I don't know, middle class angst and modernity. So
I mean, isn't one of is it Romero's films that is really, really calling that out?
Oh, yeah.
The mall one?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That was
Where it's blatantly like clear that zombies are a metaphor for consumerism.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like a lot of his stuff, like Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, I think even Land of the Dead, they did it with that too. And it all has like some sort of like subconscious plot put in there where you can easily make a reference to like your standard over the top consumerism. I mean, you go anywhere on Black Friday and you just, hey, look, it's another Romero film.
I don't go anywhere on Black Friday, but yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's that big thing that happened there. And of course, that spurred on to all the other movies that are within the zombie culture now. You've got movies that can go either like, we now have a distinction between those kinds, say fast zombies or slow zombies. If you look at like 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later.
Oh, yeah. Those
yeah.
were really cool.
Yeah. Where those were more like, you think of like, say, your fast zombies, but that also came from a virus that wasn't like the undead so much.
Right. That was the rage virus.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, kind of like rabies.
Yeah. It did seem like, it seems like it could be something that's a little bit more realistic in the frame of what might happen. But it's not like, because we're not going to see like a virus take over a dead person and then, oh no, they're back. I wouldn't believe that as much as I would believe a virus altering somebody's behavior in a way that they act more like what could be considered a zombie.
I think that's why the one YouTuber that I watch, Roanoke Gaming, he goes through and he dissects different, like he's done a lot of the zombie stuff and he talks about like what virus could have actually caused the symptoms that the zombies or the undead, the sick people are suffering from. And a lot of times it comes back to rabies.
Yeah.
And that it's attacking their immune system, their nervous system, their brain in such a way that they end up essentially being
Yeah.
dead, but because certain parts of their brain are still active, they're still functioning on like the lizard brain or whatever, like the basic
Oh, yeah.
need to, eat and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's also been, he's talked about different times in different movies where they may want to eat the brain because there's certain things in the brain that helps to satiate like the feelings that they're having, like they could be in pain or they could feel like they're starving all the time, and getting the chemical and the electrical impulses or releases that they're getting from the brain specifically eases that feeling for them temporarily.
Yeah.
And that's why they're going after the brain.
Yeah. There's also like a more natural zombie. Well, there is something that's causing zombies right now. I'm going to completely butcher this Latin.
Oh.
I think it's like Ophicordyceps unilateralis.
Yeah.
It's commonly known as the zombie ant fungus.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
It's an insect pathogenic fungus. It was discovered in 1859 by, I believe, Alfred Russel Wallace. It's basically a fungus that infects ants, and it'll grow within them, and eventually it takes over the ant, causing it to not only perform erratic behaviors, but at the very end of the cycle, it causes the ant to go up and find essentially one of the higher places it can be, so that the spore and like stalk can just sprout out of its head, and then obviously release the spores so that it can continue that cycle. So there is already something that's going on with zombifying at least an ant at this point.
Right.
So obviously a large scale of that could be interesting. I mean, but then again, that's going to go into the next section of things, as we'll talk about that coming up. So that's just one of those other fun details to bring up into this.
That zombies do exist.
Yes.
In their own way.
Yes. And like, returning back to the movie side of things, we already kind of went over like 28 days, 28 weeks with the rage style zombies. Those could be classified as your faster zombies. And then there's, I want to say like World War Z.
I didn't actually see that one.
I haven't seen it in its entirety, but the idea of their zombies are more of like a hive
I
mind.
would say, isn't that a hive mind
Yeah.
kind?
So in that case, it would almost seem as though somehow they're able to communicate with each other as a mass, but I'm not sure how that's really going about it. I mean, we could say, oh, the smell of the undead is something that could be causing it, but
Isn't it like, aren't there like parasites or different types of like fungi that can work in a hive mind way?
I don't remember.
Oh.
I mean, there's slime molds, but that's not really the same. I believe that's mostly one organism, but if it's split, it can still become more. But I
Okay.
don't think it can communicate with itself afterwards. So, but I'm not 100% on that one. I haven't researched slime molds or
Why not?
or anything that uses a hive mind. So, in that sense, more or less, I was just going off of it being another form of zombie, which has also been completely changed from the original like ghouls that we've seen Romero in. Again, these zombies, they had absolutely no color to them. I mean, it was 1968. It was still filmed in black and white.
Right.
So they had no color to them. They moved relatively slowly. They obviously wanted to attack, I think it was 5 people in a house. So, and Barbara. They did
They're
get
coming
Barbara.
to get you, Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all in all, like that seemed like a pretty good representation of where the zombie style was going to be heading from that point, because he clearly made the change as to switching them from a religious style over to a undead need for brain kind of I'm gonna eat you style as well.
I'm gonna eat you.
Yeah, they're going out there and I'm gonna eat you, the zombies. So,
Yeah.
you're buffet zombies, I guess.
So American zombies.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So let's go ahead and give it a little bit of an intermission again,
Okay.
and then we can probably hit just a couple more films that may have used good zombies in them.
This is Till the Last Drop, and you're listening to this next section on our tab.
All right, so coming back into the zombies as far as their appearances in movies and pop culture, after the whole Romero scene, we had, well, let's go with one of the more recognizable and possibly more well-known zombie movies outside of, say, a remake. There was a zombie comedy that came out in 2004. And as soon as I say this, plenty of people will probably know it starred Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And it was known as Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
So not only was it a very nicely welcomed comedy based off of zombies that took, I guess it paid more homage to other zombie films rather than just like taking it and making it its own. But it also had like other, I guess it was considered a first film of a trilogy.
Yeah.
With Hot Fuzz and The World's End. I guess those were also linked within like the Shaun of the Dead universe.
Yeah.
So oddly enough, it's the first of 3 films.
It's a great movie though.
It is. Well, it took a lot of inspiration from other things, and it also like made the zombie genre a little bit more, I don't know. It broke it away from just pure horror and gore and whatnot.
Right.
And it made it something different that was just enjoyable that you can watch at any point in time.
Right. It's the dark comedy. So
Yeah. So.
But it still kept a lot of those zombie tropes that we know.
Oh yeah. Basically, it has Simon Pegg as Sean.
Yes.
Which I don't remember his last name off the top of my head. But he goes about his life day in, day out, same routine. And then one day he wakes up and he goes about his life, same routine, day in, day out, but only this time there are zombies around. And it's kind of interesting that it starts off with him basically doing the exact same thing with these zombies in the background. Completely absent-minded to it. So
he sees little like clues, but he just writes it off as whatever.
Yeah.
People being weird.
Yep. So all in all, I mean, it just fully progresses into like him and a few of his friends going about like holding up in one of the bars and
The Winchester.
yeah. And then just kind of doing their whole thing. And I don't want to go into the entire plot of the movie because it's just better
Devolves
to
into
watch.
chaos.
Yeah. So but
Comedic
then-
chaos ensues.
So that one, that's a nice little fun reference to zombies that kind of break the mold again with that one. And of course, like at this point in time, it would have been like almost 40 years in between like when zombies became ghouls and then into like that.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a time for the change in that. Let's see what else was there. We have, I guess you mentioned Resident Evil.
Yeah.
But that one's, to me, Resident Evil is always going to be more of a video game than a movie. So.
The basis of the storyline is from the video games, and the video games are quite in depth with the origin of the zombie virus.
Yeah.
In that universe.
And of course, that's changed as far as like the games have gone over the recent years.
It's evolved in a way. But I think they're still meant to be linked.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, what was the last one?
The Village?
Yeah. That one was more like werewolf and vampire theming than, say, zombies.
Yeah. It was like
And even before that.
the one before that, which was the house one. I don't remember what it's called.
I don't.
but that one had a fungus or
There's that zombie fungus.
that was like causing the zombies.
Yeah.
And I think that the village is meant to have like that same fungus, but it's being manipulated in different ways.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I haven't played it, not 100% sure.
No, but it's definitely an interesting world.
All I know is everybody was going crazy over the big lady. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that.
So, one, I guess, that I didn't even think of that kind of has some zombie-ish tones is Pet Sematary.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's why you don't bury somebody in a pet cemetery.
It's the place beyond the Pet Cemetery. But, yeah, I didn't actually... That's one of my favorites. I love that movie and that book. And I didn't think about the fact that, yeah, technically, I guess...
Yeah.
They're reanimated bodies.
Yep.
Those ones are a little more evil. Yeah. They have more drive, I guess. They're out to kill.
Yeah. Yeah. Moving into like another one of the more recent ones. I mean, recent, I suppose. There was Zombieland. Mm-hmm. That one with what was it? Jesse Eisenberg and was it Woody Harrelson?
Yes.
And of course Bill Murray.
Yep.
One of the best scenes in that movie. Well, Bill Murray is basically like he just dresses up like a zombie and just goes about pretending to be a zombie, fully alive, and he basically states, "Is like, yeah, they don't know any different. You just do all this and just whatever. You can just go about whatever."
I mean, that's a really smart move, though.
Except he got shot.
Until it gets shot.
Yeah.
But until that, it was a smart move.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that we would never really be able to test if that would work. But it seems like you don't know. It might or it might not. Like, what is the actual thing that's tipping off zombies to either a zombie or a person? So
right. Then I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Okay.
Another thing that I think is interesting about Zombieland is that they state out loud, like it's a whole big thing, the rules.
Oh, yeah.
And I think those were kind of unspoken rules in other zombie movies.
Yeah, well, it's like the things that it's the things that are noticeable that should have been done that people didn't do that led to problems.
That led to death.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That was one interesting thing that they added on that one.
Yep. Let's see, what else can I think of here? I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here. But the 2015 movie Doom, or no, not 2015, it was 2005. I think it was.
With The Rock?
Yeah, with The Rock and Carl Urban. Was that it? I don't remember his last name. Yeah, I want to say that one is more, I guess, more genetic zombie than demon. Because the premise of Doom is basically like demons and all that kind of stuff. However, with this one being like a artificial chromosome that is injected in and all that to create like, I don't know, a higher level of being as far as consciousness goes and all that, but some of it can react to the quote unquote evil, they say, within a person and like turn you into like a monster or whatever. That one almost seemed more as if it was like more artificial zombie rather than like, oh, these are demons or something.
Yeah, they definitely steered away from the actual plot of the games.
Yeah, which it's whatever. I mean, the game's done, well, the 2015 game, the Doom, the 2015's version of Doom, as well as Doom Eternal afterwards. I mean, the storytelling is actually pretty good with all that as well. So it's like, I don't know. You have to draw that line between like what is either going to be done or what is willing to be done in a movie as compared to what can actually be achieved within a game when having somebody like be more, I guess, active in the entertainment experience. So,
right. It's like you're actually a participant in the world.
Right. Yeah.
So games, not all games lend well to movies.
No.
Unfortunately.
No. let's make a reference to not so much a zombie movie, but it does have reference to a small topic that we brought up as far as fungus. But like Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Mushrooms.
Yep. That's not, in no way is that related to zombies, but it does have to go with the idea that like not all games can be linked to a movie format very well.
I know
So,
a zombie-ish series of games that I guess has been pretty popular. That is recently I've noticed that there's a movie coming out.
Plants vs. Zombies?
No, I would actually kind of be interested in that. Not live action though. That would be weird. No,
It would be weird.
The Last of Us
Oh yeah.
with the clickers.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it just seems like, and I have been far away from The Last of Us, mainly because it just seems like it's one of those games that have been recycled so many times. It's
Yeah,
like they're
like
just
Grand
trying.
Theft Auto
Yeah.
5 or whatever it is.
Well, they've released it, they've re-released it, they released it in HD, they've re-released that version. It's like they just aren't stopping with it, and it just makes it feel like they had an idea, it came out well, and now they're just going to try to get as much out of it as they can without putting any more in. And I don't know. That's why I would be hesitant to the movie for it too. But
I don't know. It could be interesting, but that's also a different. I don't even know how to explain. Like, because again, I don't know much about that game series. I
that was
never
also
played
fungal
it.
related zombies.
That's
too.
why. Yeah, it was like a fungus,
Yeah. So
and so that's why they looked the way they did and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see how that movie comes out.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Plants vs. Zombies, and that's like that kind of made me think. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure if I did some looking around, I'd probably find something about a Plant vs. Zombie movie being in the works or something. So
I don't know. They're making new games still, sort of, aren't they?
I have no idea. I've seen the original that's been released. I saw the second one, which was, I believe, mobile only. So,
Yeah, and then they had all the like
Garden Warfare,
the multiplayer ones.
which was just a parody off of shooters. So,
It was off of like I can't think of what they're called now. Like the Fortnite or the Overwatch type games, wasn't it?
I would have said Call of Duty, but
Oh yeah,
Garden Warfare,
I guess.
Modern Warfare.
Yeah, okay. Never mind, that makes more sense. But that's the kind of where it's like a bunch of different people come in and they all fight each other.
Yeah.
So that's what I think of. Another good but old series of zombie-esque movies would be the Evil Dead movies.
Yeah. Those are more like I don't know how to put it.
They're
It's-
like
it's
demon
in between.
possessed.
Yeah, because it's almost like it's in between, like just dead coming back to life, and also like somewhat religion or all that too, because it's coming from like the Necronomicon and all that.
Right.
So it's coming from like a book that's basically like accessing like the evil realm, I guess,
Right.
and like turning people into like these zombie like things.
Right. But it is another way that zombies have shown to be like created, I guess,
Yeah.
through a sort of possession state.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's also I Am Legend.
Oh yeah, that one was remade from the novel. I think that one said it was remade 3 times. And
Yeah.
one of the versions with Will Smith.
Yeah, that's the one I've seen.
Yeah, I think I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure the one with Will Smith, he was just going around and slapping them all.
He was slapping them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how he took him out.
Yeah. Of course, there's also that other slightly popular series that has been around for a little bit. Started off as a comic book, The Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. So,
Yep, that's on TV.
yeah, yeah. I remember when that one first like started hitting the TV, it was like a big deal because the zombie makeup and all that was done for him was incredibly realistic, as they were saying. And yeah, it as compared to like the over the top stuff that you might see in some of the movies and all that, it did seem more of like a downplayed, less vibrant zombie.
Yeah.
So
It was more, I guess, realistic
yeah,
in how the decay would actually happen.
yeah.
I
And what was the other one? It was like Z Nation.
I was going to bring up Z Nation because I really, really like Z Nation.
Yeah.
But that was a dark comedy series, and it did not take itself seriously.
No.
But it's excellent. It's so kooky and silly, and also people are going through dealing with zombies
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the insanity that ensues from that.
Well, it kind of seemed like the zombies were just like, they're there. It's like, and now let's talk about this other thing. But the zombies are just there in the background.
Well, they caused problems, but it was like this whole huge story where they were trying to cure it.
Yeah.
They were trying to find a cure, and there's a dude, Murphy, who is supposedly he was injected with a potential vaccine, and then he was bit and he lived. And so he was the key to the cure. And it's just, yeah, a bunch from there. I liked that series, though. I watched that whole series a couple times.
I don't know. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with a zombie movie, but when it starts getting into like a series, it starts to break it for me.
There was another one that I watched that I found out not that long ago is actually meant to be the prequel to Z Nation, and it's called Black Summer.
Huh.
And it is not like Z Nation. I guess a lot of people did not like it because they went into it thinking, oh, this is going to be like Z Nation because it's meant to be the prequel. And after finding that out and then watching Z Nation again, they do reference Black Summer in the series, and that's supposed to be the summer that it started.
Oh, okay.
Was the Black Summer. That series, Black Summer, was really, really good. I liked a lot of things. It was very dark. But
it wasn't really comedic.
No.
Yeah.
No. It was dark. It was depressing. There was, tense moments. The people, these are like normal people who are now they have to have, weapons, and they have to try and kill things. They can't aim. They don't shoot well. And I felt that was super realistic in these situations, because you always see people that, I was a waitress at a tiny diner, and that's all, and I went to night school, and now suddenly I can shoot, I can headshot some zombie from like 500, 1,000 feet away and get an immediate, like, that's not realistic.
360 no scoop.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not realistic. These people struggled, and like they were wasting bullets. And yeah, I don't know. I like that one a lot.
And interestingly enough, with some of the things that I've seen on, like, I don't know, the theories of zombie survival and all that within an apocalypse, chances are you're not going to want to use firearms very much, if at all, just because, sure, it may be more lethal, but there's another big factor that doesn't come into play that you don't see in a lot of these series. It's noise. Like, if you're making a lot of noise, you're drawing attention to yourself. So things like bows, arrows, melee style weapons are going to be a little bit more effective because it's silent.
Right.
So,
and I think, I can't remember, I haven't watched Black Summer in a while, but I want to say that was something that was addressed in that too, was they're like, I want to shoot him, but if I do, I'm going to get this other one's attention.
Yeah.
And then and I only have one bullet. So like, instead they chose to hide and try to get away. And I think that's a lot more realistic.
Yeah. Before we move away from the TV style zombies and all that, I did want to like kind of go into like one of the reasons why. Yeah, I have seen some of the Walking Dead series. It's okay. I was more into the comic book series when it was going about, mainly because it just felt like it was so slow. That first season of The Walking Dead, I could not get into the series because I remember being excited to watch it, and I watched a couple episodes and I was just like, I'm falling asleep. It's like it started slow, and now I'll never be able to get into that series because of that.
I tried watching it like 3 or 4 times, and every time I had to start at the first episode, and every time I fell asleep partway through the first episode, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I kept trying because I had heard it was so good, and I thought maybe I was just tired that night, and every time it put me to sleep. And so after like 4 tries, I'm like, I can't. It's just going to knock me out and I'm not going to know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other part of it too, is like I was reading some of the comic to it, and then going in and watching it, it's like, it turns out in the entire first season of The Walking Dead, they didn't even get through like the volume of the comic book that I was of what I was reading. So I was like, well, I'm already like a few seasons into this. Is like, what's the point in actually even watching this when, sure, it's all right, but I mean, I already know what the plot is and what's going to happen for the most part.
And I know, like I said, I know a lot of people really, really like it, and I'm not going to say anything bad about it because I've never watched it. Yeah. All I know is that I tried, and it was very slow, and maybe it picks up. I'm sure it does. I've heard some things that happen later.
Yeah, there's been some memes.
Yeah, and I'm sure if I gave it a chance after I had a bunch of caffeine, maybe, but I haven't gone back to it.
Yeah. Well, we're getting pretty close to our time here. So I think, as I stated before in the intro here, we're probably going to be splitting this one up into 2 separate parts. Our first part is going to basically wrap up now. We've gone over a bit of the zombie origin and some of its impact in popular culture, as well as some references in that. So we will probably be covering the video game impact as well as our drink in the next part of this. So, yeah. I mean, I other than kind of doing our standard like sign off here, I mean, there's not much more else we can include other than we'll see you in the next episode. Yeah. But so,
thanks for listening. Until the last drop.
Thank you for listening Till the Last Drop. For more paranormal experiences served up with a themed drink, check us out wherever you listen to podcasts.